Take back what is not yours. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, shouted to the whole room as I, Jake Evans, stood with a glass of wine, surrounded by guests. My wife, Laura, cheated on me, and now her family wants to take away everything I built. But they didn't know that I had been preparing for this day for years. This is a story of betrayal, revenge, and the truth that will change everything. The chandelier lights of the Emerald Place Hotel's grand ballroom glittered like 1,000 tiny stars above me, casting a warm glow over the crowd of Seattle's elite. I, Jake Evans, a 38-year-old architect with a reputation for turning dreams into steel and glass, stood near the open bar, a glass of Pinot Noir in hand. It was March 25th, 2025, and I'd come here for one reason: my mother-in-law Eleanor's 60th birthday gala. The invitation had arrived a week ago, a cream-colored card with gold embossing, and I'd taken it as a sign. Maybe, just maybe, my wife Laura was ready to bridge the chasm that had grown between us over the past year. I'd spent months pouring my soul into Riverside Design, the architectural firm her father, Richard, had left me when he passed 2 years ago. Tonight, I'd hoped, could be a fresh start. The string quartet played a soft rendition of Vivaldi, and the room buzzed with the clink of crystal glasses and the low hum of conversation. Clients, partners, city council members, all gathered to celebrate Eleanor. I adjusted my tie, scanning the crowd for Laura. She'd been distant lately, her hazel eyes avoiding mine, her replies clipped. I'd chalked it up to grief, to the stress of losing her dad. But as I raised my glass to toast Eleanor, the air shifted. A sharp, commanding voice sliced through the music like a knife. "Return what doesn't belong to you, Jake." Eleanor's words boomed across the ballroom, her silver hair catching the light as she stormed toward me, her emerald gown trailing behind her like a queen on the warpath. The quartet faltered, notes dying mid-measure. Every head turned, eyes wide, pinning me in place. My heart thudded against my ribs, the wine glass trembling in my grip. "You stole my daughter's birthright. Riverside Design belongs to Laura, not you." The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a gathering storm. "Stole it," someone murmured. "I always wondered how he got the company so fast." Another voice added, sharp with suspicion. I caught sight of Laura, standing just behind her mother, her arms crossed, her face an unreadable mask. No shock, no defense, just silence. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a celebration. It was an execution. "Eleanor, that's not." I started, but my voice felt thin, drowned by the growing tide of murmurs. She stalked closer, her heels clicking on the polished floor, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "Richard built that firm for his daughter," she spat, jabbing a manicured finger at me. "Not some opportunistic architect who wormed his way in when he was too sick to know better." The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as dozens of faces, people I'd worked with, pitched to, shared drinks with, shifted from curiosity to judgment. Gregory Holt, CEO of Holt Construction and our biggest client, raised an eyebrow, his lips tightening. Margaret Klein, a city planner I'd impressed just last month, tilted her head, whispering to the man beside her. I felt the heat creeping up my neck, my pulse pounding in my ears. "That's not true." I managed, louder this time, but Eleanor cut me off with a sneer. "You manipulated him, Jake. Took advantage of a dying man. Everyone here knows it." She turned to the crowd, arms outstretched, playing the grieving widow to perfection. "Who agrees this thief should leave?" A low boo erupted from a table near the back, followed by another. My legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot as the hostility swelled. Laura still said nothing, her gaze fixed somewhere past me, her silence louder than any shout. Then I saw him. Nate Parker, my old college rival turned competitor, leaning against a pillar with a smirk curling his lips. He raised his glass slightly, a mock salute, and my blood ran cold. This wasn't just an attack. It was a setup, and I'd walked right into it. The cool night air hit my face like a slap as I stumbled out of the Emerald Place Hotel, the echo of booze and Eleanor's venomous words chasing me into the parking lot. My tie felt like a noose, and I yanked it loose, tossing it onto the passenger seat of my black Tacoma. I slid behind the wheel, hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel, the weight of 100 accusing stares pressing down on me. Jake Evans, the guy who'd turned Riverside Design into a Seattle powerhouse, reduced to a pariah in under 10 minutes. But it wasn't just the humiliation burning through me. It was the look on Laura's face. That cold, detached stare. She hadn't said a word to defend me. Not one. My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me out of the spiral. I fumbled it out, the screen glowing with a text from Kevin Blake, my attorney and Richard's old friend. Heard what happened. You okay? Call me. I didn't hesitate. My thumb hit the call button, and after 2 rings, his steady baritone crackled through. Jake, talk to me. They ambushed me, Kev. I said, my voice raw. Eleanor accused me of stealing the company in front of everyone. Laura just stood there. They think I manipulated Richard when he was dying. I swallowed hard, the memory of Nate's smirk flashing in my mind. I think there's more to this. A pause. Then Kevin's voice hardened. There is. And I got what you need to fight back. Where are you? Parking lot. My laptop's in the trunk. Good. Meet me at my office in 20. We're not letting this stand. As I drove through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, the city lights blurring past, my mind rewound to a year ago. It started with a late-night glance at Laura's phone, left unlocked on the kitchen counter. A message from Nate Parker. When's Riverside hours, babe? My heart stopped. Nate, the guy I'd once called a brother until he stabbed me in the back over a project bid in '09. I confronted Laura the next day, but she laughed it off. You're paranoid, Jake, and I let it go. Grief makes you doubt yourself. But then I found more. Photos of them at a bar in Tacoma, her hand on his arm. Emails where she promised to handle me and hand Riverside to him. I'd hired a PI after that, a quiet guy named Sam, who delivered a file thick with proof, recordings, timestamps, even a voice memo of Laura saying, once Jake's out, we'll sell it for millions. Richard's death had hit me hard. He'd been more than a father-in-law, a mentor who saw something in me Laura never did. 2 years ago, in his hospice room, his hand frail but firm around mine, he'd said, Jake, you're the one. Laura's smart, but she doesn't care about the firm. She'd let it rot. Promise me you'll keep it alive. I quit my solo studio dreams, poured everything into Riverside, growing it by 30% while Laura partied with Nate. His will was ironclad. He'd left me controlling interest, with Laura getting a trust fund sheet called petty cash. Eleanor had nodded at the reading, but the whispers started weeks later. Jake pressured him. Richard wasn't himself. Tonight wasn't random. It was the climax of a year-long smear campaign, and Nate's presence confirmed it. They'd planned this. Eleanor to play the outraged mother, Laura to stay silent, Nate to swoop in once I was disgraced. My knuckles whitened on the wheel as I pulled into Kevin's downtown office lot, the glass building looming against the night sky. He buzzed me in, and I found him at his desk, surrounded by files and a steaming coffee mug. Sit, he said, sliding a binder my way. Richard knew they might pull this. He left you ammunition. I flipped it open. Richard's will, medical reports certifying his clarity, a USB labeled testimony. My chest tightened. What's on this? Richard, 3 months before he died, explaining why he chose you. Video, notarized, airtight. Kevin leaned forward, eyes sharp. But there's more. You've got proof of Laura's affair. I nodded, pulling a flash drive from my jacket. Enough to bury her. Then we've got them, Kevin said, a rare grin breaking through. Eleanor wants a public war? We'll give her one she'll regret. The fluorescent lights of Kevin Blake's office buzzed faintly overhead as I paced the hardwood floor, my shoes tapping out a restless rhythm. Stacks of binders and files towered on his desk, each one a piece of the arsenal we were building. It was past 9 p.m. on March 25th, 2025, and the Seattle skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. My hands still trembled from the gala, but the humiliation was hardening into something else, resolve. Eleanor and Laura had declared war in that ballroom. Now it was my turn to strike back. Kevin sat back in his leather chair, flipping through the binder he'd handed me. Richard was a chess player. Jake, he said, tapping a page. Always 3 moves ahead. This video testimony, he recorded it knowing Laura and Eleanor might twist the truth. He's got Dr. Ellis on camera certifying his mental state, plus clips of Laura dodging every chance he gave her to join Riverside. He slid the USB across the desk. It's gold. I stopped pacing, picking up the drive. The weight of it felt like a lifeline. What's in the rest? I asked, nodding at the files. Everything you need, Kevin replied, his voice steady. Financials showing Riverside's 30% growth under you. New contracts, no layoffs, expansion into Portland. Letters from employees praising your leadership. Board minutes where Laura rejected a VP role because, and I quote, "I'm not wasting my life on blueprints." He smirked. Then there's the legal stuff. Eleanor's 3 failable contests. Judges called her claims baseless. I sank into a chair, the pieces clicking together. So Richard chose me because he knew I'd fight for it. Exactly. And he knew Laura wouldn't. Kevin leaned forward, elbows on the desk. But what about her affair? That's your ace. I pulled a second flash drive from my pocket, the one Sam, my PI, had compiled. Photos, texts, recordings. Laura and Nate Parker plotting to push me out and sell Riverside. She didn't just cheat. She sold out her dad's legacy. My jaw tightened. Nate was at the gala, Kev, smirking like he'd already won. Kevin's eyes narrowed. Then we hit them where it hurts. Publicly, just like they did to you. We go back tonight, while the gala's still going. Show everyone the truth. Back there, my stomach lurched at the thought of facing those judgmental faces again. They booed me out an hour ago. And that's why it's perfect, he said, standing. They think you're done. Walking in with proof. Richard's words, your results, Laura's betrayal. That's how you flip the script. We'll bring my associates, make it official. You got the binders, I got the projector. We'll bury them in facts. I hesitated, the memory of Eleanor's sneer and Laura's silence clawing at me. But then I thought of Richard, his trust, his frail hands squeezing mine, his belief I could carry Riverside forward. I couldn't let him down. Okay, I said, voice firming. Let's do it. What's the plan? Kevin grabbed his phone, dialing. First, we call in reinforcements, Tom, Lisa, and Greg, my partners. They'll meet us at the hotel, suits and all. Intimidation factor. He winked, then spoke into the phone. Tom, it's go time. Emerald Place, 30 minutes. He hung up, turning to me. You take the stage, tell your story. I'll handle the tech. Richard's video, your financials, Laura's texts on the big screen. The associates distribute binders to every table. No one leaves without the full picture. I open my laptop, plugging in Sam's drive. A grainy photo of Laura and Nate at a Tacoma diner popped up, her lips on his cheek. My chest tightened, but I clicked to a recording, her voice clear and cold. Once Jake's gone, we'll cash out. Screw Dad's legacy. I looked at Kevin. This'll destroy her. She destroyed herself, he corrected, stacking binders into a box. You're just showing the receipts. Ready. I nodded, adrenaline surging. For the next 20 minutes, we worked like a machine, printing extra copies of court rulings, organizing evidence into sleek black binders, syncing the USBs to his projector. Kevin called the hotel, ensuring the ballroom's AV system was still live. The clock hit 9:45 p.m. The gala would be winding down, but the key players, Eleanor, Laura, Nate, the business crowd, would still be there sipping champagne, gloating over my defeat. We loaded the SUV, the binders a silent army in the back seat. As we pulled out, Kevin glanced at me. Richard always said you had grit, Jake. Tonight you prove it. I stared at the rain-streaked road, my resolve stealing. They wanted a fight. They're getting one. The hum of the Emerald Place hotel loomed closer as Kevin's SUV rolled up to the valet stand, tires crunching on wet gravel. It was just past 10 p.m. on March 25th, 2025, and the Seattle night shimmered with a drizzle that matched the storm in my chest. I stepped out, my suit wrinkled from the chaos, but my spine straight with purpose. Behind me, Kevin and his 3 associates, Tom, Lisa, and Greg, unloaded the binders, their crisp suits and stern faces a wall of authority. The doorman, who'd watched me flee in disgrace an hour ago, blinked in shock as we brushed past him, a legal battalion storming back into the fray. The ballroom doors swung open, and the chatter inside faltered. The string quartet had resumed, playing a lilting waltz, but it stopped mid-note as I crossed the threshold. Heads turned, champagne flutes paused mid-sip, and a hush rippled through the crowd. Eleanor stood near a towering cake, her emerald gown catching the light, a triumphant smile plastered on her face, until she saw me. Her jaw tightened, and Laura, beside her, gripped her arm, whispering furiously. Nate Parker lingered by the bar, his smirk fading as he clocked the binders in Tom's hands. Kevin stepped forward, his voice booming. Ladies and gentlemen, forgive the interruption. I'm Kevin Blake, counsel to Richard Ellis and executor of his estate. We're here to address a misunderstanding about Riverside design. He nodded to his team, who fanned out, placing binders on every table. Guests exchanged confused glances, some reaching for the documents, others staring at me like I'd risen from the dead. I took the stage, the quartet's microphone cool in my hand. 2 hours ago, I was called a thief. I began, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. Eleanor accused me of stealing Riverside design from Laura. You booed me out, but you only heard half the story. I paused, letting the silence stretch. Now, you'll hear the rest. Kevin plugged the USB into the projector, and Richard's face flickered onto the screen behind me. Gaunt, eyes sunken from cancer, but sharp with intent. Gasps rippled through the room. I'm Richard Ellis. His raspy voice filled the space. Recording this on December 10th, 2022, with my attorney Kevin Blake and Dr. Ellis present. I'm of sound mind, and I'm leaving Riverside to Jake Evans. He coughed, then straightened. Jake's got the grit and vision to lead. Laura's had every chance, training, offers, but she's refused. She told me, I don't care about some boring firm. The video cut to clips. Laura rolling her eyes at a family dinner, saying, I'm not in a blueprints, Dad, then rejecting a VP role on camera, laughing, I'd rather die than sit in meetings. Richard's voice returned. I trust Jake to protect my legacy. That's my will. The screen went dark, and I faced the crowd. Eleanor contested, though 3 times. 3 judges ruled against her. Page 5 of your binders. Kevin flashed the court docs, crisp and undeniable. Murmurs grew louder, guests flipping pages. Since I took over, Riverside's grown 30%. New jobs, new markets, page 10. But Laura had other plans. I nodded to Kevin, who switched files. A photo of Laura and Nate at a Tacoma bar splashed across the screen, her lips on his cheek. Then her voice, cold and clear from a recording. Once Jake's out, we'll sell Riverside. Screw Dad's legacy. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers of glass shattering somewhere. Eleanor lurched forward, shouting, lies, but Lisa and Greg stepped in her path, calm but immovable. Page 15, I said, voice rising. Laura's text with Nate Parker, plotting to ruin me. She cheated, then sold out her father's dream. I locked eyes with her. You wanted me gone, Laura. Here's your proof. Nate bolted for the exit, shoving past a waiter, but the damage was done. Guests stared at Laura, some shaking their heads, others clutching binders like lifelines. Eleanor hissed, this is my night. You monster, but her voice cracked, her authority crumbling. Laura's face flushed red, her mouth opening, then closing, no defense left. Gregory Holt, my biggest client, stood. Jake, I misjudged you. This changes everything. Others nodded, the tide turning. I stepped off the stage, binders open across the room. The truth lay bare. Eleanor grabbed Laura and stormed out, but the war was over. I'd won. 3 months had passed since that electric night at the Emerald Place Hotel, and the air in Seattle felt lighter as summer crept in. It was June 25th, 2025, and I, Jake Evans, stood in my corner office at Riverside Design, gazing out at the Puget Sound. The skyline gleamed with projects I'd fought to build. Affordable housing in Capitol Hill, a sleek library in Ballard, all born from the chaos of Eleanor's gala. The company hadn't just survived, it thrived. Revenue was up 35%, we'd hired 25 new staff, and a second office in Portland was humming. The binders from that night had done more than clear my name. They'd cemented my legacy. The fallout hit fast after the showdown. Gregory Holt doubled his contract the next week, citing trust in leadership. 2 wavering clients signed long-term deals, and the business community that once booed me now buzzed with respect. Articles in Seattle Business Journal called Riverside a model of resilience. But it wasn't the numbers that kept me going, it was Richard. His voice from that video, frail but fierce, echoed in my head. Protect my legacy, Jake. I promised him, and I delivered. Laura showed up unannounced 2 weeks after the gala, slipping past reception to my office. She stood in the doorway, her usual poise replaced by fidgeting hands and tired eyes. I need a job, Jake, she said, voice low. Mom blew through her savings on those lawsuits, and my trust doesn't kick in for years. I studied her. No smirk, no venom, just a woman cornered by her own choices. Against Kevin's advice, "She'll stab you again, Jake," I offered her an entry-level gig in logistics. To my surprise, she took it. She's good at it, too. Organized, sharp, though we're not friends. There's a quiet respect now, a truce carved from necessity. Eleanor vanished from Seattle shortly after, rumors placing her in Miami, chasing a retired tech mogul. She sent me one venomous email, "You'll regret this," but it was an empty threat. Her social circle here had crumbled. No one bought her martyr act once the binder spread. Kevin laughed when I told him, "She's out of moves, Jake. You checkmated her." Life shifted for me beyond the firm, too. Architecture had always been my passion, sketching buildings late into the night, turning ideas into concrete and steel. But running Riverside woke something deeper, a hunger to lead, to create not just structures but opportunities. Last month, I launched the Richard Ellis Foundation, a nonprofit blending my worlds. It funds community design projects, playgrounds, clinics for underserved areas, honoring Richard's dream of buildings that lift people up. At the launch, I unveiled a model of our Riverside, a rec center in Rainier Valley, and felt his pride in the air. The gala night had changed me. Walking back into that ballroom, binders in tow, I'd shed the Jake who doubted himself. I wasn't just Richard's son-in-law anymore. I was the CEO who'd turned betrayal into triumph. One evening, as I locked up the office, Laura lingered by her desk. "You didn't have to give me this," she said, eyes on the floor. "After everything." "You're right," I replied, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "But Richard taught me something. Second chances matter, if you earn them." She nodded, a ghost of a smile flickering, and I walked out into the dusk. Standing on the rec center side a week later, I watched cranes lift beams into place. Workers waved, their job secure because I'd fought for Riverside. The foundation's logo, a bridge with Richard's initials, gleamed on a sign nearby. Laura was finding her footing, Eleanor was a fading echo, and I'd built something bigger than revenge. Richard was right. Legacies aren't stolen, they're earned. And this one, forged in truth and grit, was mine.